Hi everybody, Bunny Basics here. Thanks for stopping by to watch this video. This is the 500 subscriber Q&A, the answers to your questions. I just want to say thank you again to everybody who subscribed, and thank you for asking your questions and leaving comments on that video. So I'm just going to be reading from my phone, and I'll just go through the comments on there and see how many I get through and can answer for you guys. Okay, so the first question is, how do I convince my parents to let me get my rabbit neutered? This is a bit of a tough one because often when you live with parents, it's your parents who pay for vet visits and those sorts of things, and I'm assuming that's what you're referring to in this question. The best you can do is to research, why it's beneficial to your rabbit's health, especially if you're talking about neutering. I'm not sure if you've got a male or a female, but with males, if your rabbit is still young, he may still develop hormonal behaviours such as spraying urine, which can be a big problem if you're housing your rabbit indoors. With females, there's a big health risk of uterine cancer once they reach about 4 years of age. The rate of uterine cancer is quite high in unspayed female rabbits. So those are probably the big points. The other point is litter training. If your rabbit has trouble with litter training, spaying and neutering can really be helpful with helping those litter habits become much better, if not pretty much perfect. So that's another good way to help convince your parents if your rabbit has trouble with litter training. Otherwise, if you're not the one that's paying for it, I know it can be very difficult to get that to happen when your parents may not see it as being worthwhile. But do what you can, look up some research, show it to your parents, and just ask them as nicely as you can, I suppose. Next question is, how long do you let your rabbits out every day? Every day, probably at least 7 hours every day, I would say. In the morning they come out for about an hour while I get ready for work and have breakfast and all that sort of thing. And then when I get home from work, they come out again straight away, and they're out until I go to bed, unless we go out somewhere, which isn't terribly often. And then on weekends they're probably out for much longer than that, from when I get up until when I go to bed at night. So they get at least 6 hours out every day, and probably 10 to 12 hours, if not a bit longer, on weekends when I don't have work. Next question is, what's your rabbit's favourite veggie? I don't really know. Apollo doesn't like carrot, I know that much. He's a bit of a weirdo. Luna just always eats his share. I keep offering it to him, but he never eats it. They both love fresh greens, but I don't really know that they have a favourite anything, really. They love food. Do you think it's better to have rabbits in pairs or alone? I know everyone always recommends pairs, but I personally like single bunnies as you have a closer bond to them and they are more interested in you. Any thoughts, especially since you had Bandit as a single bunny and Apollo and Luna are a duo? This one I have two opinions on. Is it better to have rabbits in pairs? Yes, I would say so. However, I don't think it's a requirement of keeping bunnies. In certain circumstances, that is. If you have a rabbit outside in a shed or a big hutch with a run, I'm always going to recommend that you have a bonded pair of rabbits as opposed to a single. Whereas if you have a rabbit indoors, which is living in your bedroom with a playpen or in the living area of your house, or even free roaming in your house, I think it's perfectly acceptable for that rabbit to be a single rabbit and not bonded to another one, simply because they have that constant interaction with you and you're around all the time to spend time with them, to pet them, to talk to them, that sort of thing. Whereas if your rabbits are kept outdoors, they're not going to see you as much, you're not going to be around. Even if you're not directly interacting with your rabbit can still be near you when they're indoors. However, if they're outside, it's beneficial for them to have a bonded partner so that they can just be around another rabbit. And I think that's the most important point, is it depends on how your rabbit is kept and what your lifestyle is like around that. How do I get my rabbit to let me pick her up and cut her nails? This is like a whole video in itself. You have to work with your rabbits so they are comfortable with you picking them up. It can take a really long time, and you have to be confident in picking up your rabbit as well. Some people don't even pick their rabbits up to cut their nails, but I know some rabbits can be really, really difficult. With Bandit, he never liked his tummy being touched, so I had to start petting him on his side and moving my hand around to his tummy progressively rather than just going straight for the tummy. So it's a matter of working with your rabbit. Look up and watch videos on how to pick up your rabbit, because there's a few different ways, but there's also a few wrong ways. Make sure you're always supporting their bottom and their front end and bring them against your body as quickly as possible. The only time I ever pick up Apollo and Luna is for grooming or for nail trims. It's just basically a matter of training. Work with them, give them treats if that works, get them to come closer to you. Train them by picking them up only for a short time, like pick them up, hold them for 1 second and then pop them straight back down again. You don't even have to pick them up very high off the ground. Just those little things, pick them up several times a day, just for a couple of seconds, pop them back down and give them a treat straight away so they know it's not always this horrible thing that every time you pick them up you're going to cut their nails. The same with cutting their nails. Don't try and do all their nails at once. If you can only get one nail done without your rabbit freaking out, just clip one nail and make a little chart with pictures of your bunny's paws with all the little nails, and then cross off which one you've done and when you cut it, and then the next time when you go to cut 1 or 2 more nails, then just cross off those other ones. So you don't have to cut all the nails at once, especially if your rabbit gets really stressed or really struggles when you attempt to do that. Okay, I don't even know if I answered that question. I'm trying to do the best I can in a short amount of time. Okay, how many rabbits have you owned in your life and what made you decide to keep rabbits? I'll answer the second one first. What made me decide to keep rabbits was pretty much Watership Down. I think I covered that a little bit in my video about that book. It's basically what led to my love of rabbits. From reading Watership Down, I started watching wild rabbits on my grandparents' farm, and from that I became interested in owning a rabbit. I have had Apollo and Luna are my 4th and 5th rabbit. I nearly got that wrong. Bandit was my 3rd rabbit that I've ever owned. Apollo and Luna are my first bonded pair. My first rabbit, I think I've also got this in my last Q&A. My first rabbit was called Alex. She was very cute. She was an agouti, and then my second rabbit was a little dwarf lop mix, but he had upwards ears, and he was a broken black, and his name was Hazelra, after the main character in Watership Down. And I got him from a friend who found him in her yard and they couldn't find the owner, so I rehomed him for them, and then Bandit was my 3rd rabbit before Apollo and Luna here. I put up veggies for them so they would go upstairs and be more in the shot, but that doesn't really seem to be working. They're just chilling. How should I get my rabbit to be more calm around people other than me and my family? So this one is basically something that other people need to work on. If you have friends over, you have to tell them how to approach your rabbits and what to do not to scare them, and you also need to get those people to give your rabbits treats or to feed them their pellets or a veggie or something that they find really exciting. Your rabbits are never going to get used to other people by you training them. You have to get them used to other people by those other people training them, if that makes sense. So they have to learn not to be scared of new people. So when somebody new comes over, say, hey, if you've got a minute, I'd like if you could do such and such and try and give my rabbit a treat, just so they get used to strange people and strange smells. Having said that, not all rabbits are going to tolerate strangers. Some of them freak out a lot, especially if sometimes people who are visiting may have the smell of other animals on them, whether it's cats or dogs. Apollo freaks out if I ever come home smelling like dogs. If I've been to a friend's house and been petting their dog, he cannot stand dog smell. Luna isn't fussed either way. So that's something else to keep in mind if you have friends over that your rabbits are scared of. But get them to sit calmly in your rabbit's playpen, quietly, not reaching out for your rabbit, but offering treats to them, and that will help get your rabbits used to new people. And if you do that with a lot of people that come over, that will really, really help your rabbits. Do bonded rabbits act differently than single rabbits? I'm going to say absolutely, if only because they have a companion. With Apollo and Luna, if one of them comes downstairs to their litter tray to eat hay, the other one doesn't like being left upstairs on their own, so they'll come downstairs as well, even if they're not coming down to sit in the litter tray and eat hay. They just like to sort of follow each other around, and I suppose that was the same thing with Bandit following me around the house sometimes. Otherwise, in general, they're not terribly different. They're still rabbits. I find my pair is messier than Bandit was. I don't know if that's just them or that's pairs. But they still love being petted. They come up for pets, they come up for treats. They come running around and act crazy when it's time for pellets. So not much different, it's just more they have that interaction with each other and they like to follow each other around to constantly have that companion, which is nice, I think. How is your relationship with Dory progressing? It's progressing okay. We had a setback when we had to take her to the vet to get her nails trimmed. Because we didn't have a way to get her into her carrier without us getting bitten, we actually had to capture her in a towel and put her in the carrier, which was really stressful for her and really stressful for us. She's recovered okay from that, but she was a bit quite wary for a while, and she didn't want to come out of her cage after that for a few days. I think because she was too scared that if she came out, she would be caught again. But we're progressing. She takes treats nicely from your fingers when she's in and out of her cage. She lets you approach her and put your face right up to her and talk to her, and sometimes she leans forward like she's interested and not like she's going to bite, which is nice, but we've still got a long way to go if we want to tame her and touch her. I was progressing quite well with that, but I sort of slacked off with it for a while, so I haven't really made any progress, which is a bit sad because I would like to get further along with that and have her become not necessarily really hand-tamed, but friendly enough that I can get her onto my hand to step up so I can move her around if need be or into a carrier. So that would be nice, and I'm sure it would be nice for her to have that interaction with us. Are you planning on having any more pets? Yes, absolutely. I want a cat, at least one. Mr. Bunny Basics wants a cat and a dog, and I want a dog as well, so there's at least those. He also wants a reptile, probably like a bearded dragon, and at some point, you know, we'd like all of those, so there's at least 3, 4, 5 more pets on the horizon for us at some point, but at the moment it's just not feasible for us to do that, so we're content at the moment with Apollo and Luna and Dory, plus they're already quite a bit of work, so adding 4 pets onto that or something would be insane. Maybe a couple more at some point, but not all at once, I don't think. But there's definitely more pets in the future, at which point I'm sure you will see them on this channel. And last question, are Apollo and Luna more work than Dory? Yes and no. That's a hard question. Yes, because I have to do more for the bunnies on a daily basis. As in I change the spot clean their litter tray daily, I have to sweep up their hay because they put it everywhere as well as their poops. They have 3 meals a day, Dory has 2 meals a day. Dory's cage we clean out every 4 days. I think it's every 4 days. It's usually good for that long before it even starts to smell, and then we clean it all out. And she gets 2 meals a day. And she's really pretty easy. I think the hardest part about Dory, the most work, is when we let her out of her cage. We try to do that at least every other day. And that's because she has to be constantly supervised. Because unlike a rabbit, which you can bunny-proof a room for, Dory can fly. So anywhere that she can get to isn't safe. She's usually pretty good. She hangs out on her cage. Occasionally she lands on top of the bunny cage and Apollo comes up and sniffs her feet and that sort of thing. But it is a concern that you have to be constantly watching. You can't go in or out of any doors to outside. We have to have the curtains closed on the windows so she doesn't fly into the window. You can't open the front door if somebody comes to visit. It's sort of, you really have to sort of, I mean, she's usually pretty good and she just hangs out in one spot for a couple hours and then flies around and then hangs out in another spot for a couple hours, but she's more work in that you have to be watching her, whereas the bunnies, because they have their playpen, you can just let them out and do whatever and it doesn't really matter, so. But, you know, apart from that, the only work is trying to ignore her when sometimes she gets a bit squawky. Usually she's just chatty and happy, but sometimes she has days where she's grumpy, I guess. I don't know why. Either she wants to come out that day and she didn't get to. Sorry I keep looking over there, by the way. That's where Dory's cage is, and I just kind of keep looking that way as I'm talking about it. But, yeah. So I think, I don't know. I don't find cleaning up after the bunnies work, but I do find cleaning up after Dory to be work. I find that more difficult than the rabbits, even though I have to clean up after the rabbits more often. So that doesn't really answer that question either. Thank you everyone so much for asking your questions. I'm sorry I didn't get through all of them, especially to that one commenter who I know left a lot of questions. I really wanted to answer them all, but this video is already, I don't know how long, maybe 10-15 minutes long. So I didn't want to go on forever. And it just means you can ask those questions that you really wanted to ask when I do my next Q&A, whenever that will be. So thank you again very much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like, thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Thank you again to everyone who has subscribed to help us reach 500 subscribers. It's been really fantastic and I really, really appreciate it. Apollo and Luna, thank you too. Even though they're not eating their veggies and they were supposed to be up here for the entire video, which is why I put the veggies up here instead of down on the floor like I usually do. But they're happy, snuggly bunnies. Thank you again for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!